The news that's breaking right now is sending shockwaves through communities across America. And if you're a veteran or receiving SSI benefits, you need to hear this immediately because what's being revealed could mean thousands of dollars headed your way that you might not even know about. We're talking about a secret payment program that's been flying under the radar, and the details that are emerging are absolutely stunning. This isn't some rumor or speculation. This is real money that could be sitting there with your name on it. And the fact that so many people have no idea this exists is frankly outrageous. Let me break this down for you because what's happening here is bigger than most people realize. There's been talk circulating in veteran communities and disability advocacy groups about a payment system that was supposedly established but never properly announced to the public. We're hearing reports of amounts reaching up to $6,000 per eligible individual, and the criteria for who qualifies is broader than anyone expected. The frustrating part is that government agencies apparently haven't been doing their job in getting this information out to the people who desperately need it. Veterans who served our country and SSI recipients who are already struggling to make ends meet are being left in the dark about money that could change their lives right now. What makes this whole situation even more infuriating is how it came to light in the first place. Insiders from various benefits processing centers started noticing unusual payment codes appearing in their systems. Codes that didn't match any of the standard benefit distributions they were familiar with. When they started asking questions and digging deeper, they discovered there was an entire payment program that had been authorized but somehow got lost in the bureaucratic maze. Some workers reported seeing these payments going out to certain individuals, while the vast majority of eligible people weren't receiving anything at all. The inconsistency raised red flags, and that's when advocacy groups started demanding answers. Now here's where it gets really interesting and honestly pretty alarming. The payment appears to be connected to adjustments and corrections related to previous benefit calculations that were done incorrectly. For years, there have been systematic errors in how certain benefits were being calculated, particularly for veterans with specific service-connected conditions and SSI recipients who fell into particular income brackets. When these errors were finally identified, instead of making a big public announcement and proactively reaching out to everyone affected, the agencies involved apparently decided to process corrections only for people who specifically requested reviews of their cases. That means millions of people who are owed this money have no idea they need to ask for it. Veterans who serve during specific time periods or in certain locations are particularly affected by this. If you were stationed overseas, if you were exposed to hazardous conditions, or if you received certain types of discharge paperwork, there's a strong possibility you're among those who should be getting this payment. The same goes for SSI recipients who experience changes in their living situations, had fluctuating income levels, or dealt with medical condition changes that weren't properly accounted for in their benefit calculations. The scope of people potentially affected is massive, and yet the silence from official channels has been deafening. What really drives this home is the stories coming from people who accidentally discovered they were owed this money. One veteran in Texas found out purely by chance when a claims representative mentioned something during an unrelated phone call. Another SSI recipient in Florida only learned about it because a social worker happened to see something unusual in her file. These aren't isolated incidents. These are examples of a much larger pattern of people stumbling onto information they should have been told about directly. When you start hearing the same story over and over from different parts of the country, you know something systematic is going wrong. The amount of $6,000 didn't just come out of nowhere either. That figure represents accumulated underpayments spanning multiple years for many recipients. When you calculate how much someone should have been receiving versus what they actually got, those gaps add up quickly. For a veteran living on a fixed income or an SSI recipient already below the poverty line, $6,000 isn't just helpful, it's potentially life-changing. That's enough to pay off crushing medical bills, catch up on rent, fix a broken-down car, or finally afford necessary repairs to a home. This is money that people earned through their service or qualified for through legitimate need, and it's been sitting there inaccessible. The bureaucratic nightmare that's keeping this money from reaching people is exactly what you'd expect from a system that's broken in so many ways. Multiple agencies are involved, each one pointing fingers at the others about whose responsibility it is to notify eligible recipients. The Department of Veterans Affairs says it's up to the Social Security Administration for certain cases, while the Social Security Administration claims the VA needs to handle veteran-specific issues. And meanwhile, people are caught in the middle without any clear guidance on how to claim what's rightfully theirs. It's the kind of government dysfunction that makes your blood boil when you really think about the real human cost of all this bureaucratic finger-pointing. What's emerging from conversations with benefits counselors and veteran service organizations is that there may actually be several different payment programs all getting lumped together under this umbrella of secret payments. Some are related to cost of living adjustment errors that happened during the pandemic years when everything was chaotic and mistakes were more likely to slip through. Others are connected to legislative changes that expanded eligibility for certain benefits but weren't applied retroactively the way they should have been. Then there are the payments related to successful appeals and reviews that somehow never got processed correctly even after people won their cases. All of these different streams are creating a confusing landscape where nobody seems to have complete information about the full picture. The timeline on all of this is crucial because there are likely deadlines involved that nobody is clearly communicating. If these payments are related to corrections of past errors, there are usually statutes of limitations on how far back you can claim retroactive benefits. That means if you don't act soon, you could lose out on money that's technically owed to you simply because too much time passed. The government has a convenient way of setting these deadlines without making sure people actually know about them, and then when the deadline passes, they wash their hands of any responsibility. It's a system designed to save money by making it as difficult as possible for people to claim what they're entitled to. And it's absolutely infuriating when you see it happening in real time. Veterans groups are now mobilizing to try to get answers and force transparency about this whole situation. Major veterans organizations are filing Freedom of Information Act requests trying to get documentation about these payment programs and how many people are actually eligible. They're demanding that if there's money owed to veterans and SSI recipients, there needs to be a proactive outreach campaign to make sure everyone who qualifies actually receives their payment. The pushback they're getting from government agencies is telling. Lots of bureaucratic language about privacy concerns and system limitations, but very little actual commitment to solving the problem. It's classic government stonewalling when they know they've messed up, but don't want to admit it publicly. Social media has become crucial in spreading awareness about this because traditional media isn't covering it the way they should be. Veterans are sharing their experiences in Facebook groups, posting on Reddit about unusual payments they received or discovered they were eligible for, and trying to piece together information from dozens of different sources. Disability advocates are doing the same thing, creating informal networks to share information and help people navigate the confusing process of potentially claiming these payments. It's grassroots information sharing filling the gap that official channels should be handling. And while it's inspiring to see communities come together like this, it's also deeply frustrating that it's necessary in the first place. The verification process for these payments appears to be intentionally complicated, almost as if it's designed to discourage people from following through. You need specific documentation, some of it dating back years, and if you can't produce exactly what they're asking for, your claim can be denied even if you're clearly eligible based on your circumstances. Veterans are being asked for service records that were supposed to be maintained by the military, but somehow went missing. SSI recipients are being told they need proof of living expenses from years ago that most people wouldn't think to keep. It's an obstacle course that seems calculated to reduce the number of successful claims, and for people who are already dealing with disabilities, health issues, or the challenges of aging, jumping through these hoops can feel impossible. What's particularly cruel about this situation is how it's affecting people who are already vulnerable. We're talking about veterans who came home from war zones with physical injuries and psychological trauma, people who gave everything for their country and are now struggling to get by on inadequate benefits. We're talking about SSI recipients who are elderly, disabled, or both, living on incomes that barely cover basic necessities. People who have to choose between medication and food on a regular basis. For these individuals, $6,000 isn't a windfall, It's a lifeline. And the fact that this money is being kept from them through bureaucratic incompetence or intentional obfuscation is genuinely enraging when you think about the human impact. The legal implications of all this are starting to emerge as well. Attorneys who specialize in veterans' benefits and disability law are looking into whether there are grounds for class action lawsuits over the systematic failure to properly notify people about payments they're owed. If it can be proven that agencies knowingly withheld information about these payments or made it unnecessarily difficult for people to claim them, there could be serious legal consequences and potentially additional compensation for affected individuals. That's a long process, though, and people need help now, not years from now when a lawsuit might eventually be resolved. The immediate crisis is that there are people who could use this money right now to address urgent needs in their lives.